Hello and welcome to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. This is Colleen Beamish from Humor Bean Cards, and today I'm making a sweet easel card that is clean and simple. So the only set I'm using today is Nancy's Lilac Bouquet. I'm keeping things very simple using the main imagery in this stamp set as well as 2 sentiments. So I went ahead and I die cut out my large bouquet and the box or crate, and I'm just putting those right into my mini MISTI. Now I have a sticky mat in my MISTI, so those should stay in place, and I'm just lining up my stamp with the die cut image. I find it much easier to line up the stamp with the die cut than to try to die cut after I stamp the image. So once I have both images lined up, I'm going to ink them up with some Gina Amalgam ink in the color Obsidian. And this ink is great for Copic coloring, which is what I will be doing today. I'm just going to apply a lot of pressure to make sure that I'm getting a solid impression. And I actually do stamp this twice. I pretty much do that regardless of the impression. I think it's always a good idea to stamp twice. So I'll just put that down again and again apply quite a bit of pressure to make sure I'm getting an even layer of ink. Now I'm going in with my Copic coloring. So I have 3 different brown shades that I'm using on this crate. And honestly, I do too much for this box because first of all, the top half is going to be covered by the flowers. And then I always just overdo it. I get excited, I think. And I always think I'm going to keep the colors nice and light and pastel, but then I end up just layering and layering and adding shading and more shading, and it gets much more dramatic and darker than I plan. But I do just stick to 3 colors of brown. So I had E11, this is E15. These are all very warm tone browns, and honestly, they're the only browns I own. So if you have a small collection of Copics and you're looking to add some trio of browns, you can check down in the description below. All of the supplies I'm using in today's video are available at ScrapbookPal.com and linked down in the description, so be sure to check that out. So once I add some of that medium brown, I'm going back in with the lightest color, E11, and kind of blending that out. I thought maybe I was only going to be using these 2 colors, so I'm leaving it lighter in the middle, darker on the outsides, and I kind of thought I was just going to leave it here. But then I felt like there wasn't enough contrast, and so I'm coming in with my darkest color, which is E18, and I'm just using that to kind of add shadow where I think it should be. So this row here is the inside of the box, going in on the corners there, and then from the outer edges and where what would be the seams of the wood are. And like I said, I just keep going. So once I go in with the darkest color, I then go backwards. So now I'm going in with that medium brown to even that out a little bit. It's really kind of a dance with Copics of adding shading but then trying to balance it out. So now I'm adding more shading along the outer edges. So I just keep doing this back and forth. And like I said, the crate does not matter as much as the amount of effort I'm putting into this. I would say sometimes it's fun just to play with colors and kind of see how different things blend together. You definitely don't have to do browns for this. It could be a colorful box or a rainbow box, even if you wanted it to be. So yeah, I'm just darkening things up and then balancing it out. So this is that middle brown again, and I'm trying to even things out, and then I'll come back in with the lightest shade and go over everything again. So you can see at this point that middle part that I thought I was going to kind of keep white is completely covered. It's okay. It doesn't bother me all that much, and nobody's really paying attention. So once I'm happy with it, just adding some more shading and more shading, then I'll move on to the florals. So I'm starting with the color Lilac, which is a pretty soft purple color, and I'm just dotting that on the center of these little flowers. Now, here's the thing. This is titled Nancy's Lilac Bouquet, but I promise you that these are hydrangeas in this bouquet. There is not a lilac in sight. just based on the shape of these flowers. So I'm coloring it like it's a hydrangea. So I'm going in with the purple kind of in the centers, and now I'm going in with a light blue color around the outside. So I'm kind of blending the purple into the blue. This blue is not my ideal blue for a hydrangea. I would want to have more of a purple blue, which was kind of my goal in having both purple and blue on the flowers. But I'm doing the best with what I have. And it was kind of fun to see how the colors would mix together. So I wasn't being very particular where I was putting color. I was just kind of dotting it all over. That's kind of the fun thing about the bouquet, is that it doesn't need to be super precise because all the flowers are kind of just shoved together. And no one's going to be paying attention to every single line and making sure that you're coloring in the lines and all that. So I'm just putting a wash of that blue down. And then I'll actually come back in with the purple, and I felt like the blue kind of washed out the purple entirely. So there's certain flowers that I wanted more purple to be emphasized, or where I'm kind of using the purple as a shadow. So any of the flowers that are like obviously kind of in the background or like would be layered over, I'm just adding more purple so that stands out. Now for the roses, I wanted them to be a nice pretty pink. So I'm going in with RV10, which is pale pink. And you can see here, I'm not even worrying about coloring the whole thing. I'm literally just throwing down a wash of that palest pink. And then I'm going in with RV52, and that will kind of darken it up a little bit. Similar to when I was coloring the box, I thought I was only going to use 2 colors. So I thought it was going to be that palest pink and then this one. But you'll see later that I do feel like I need a little bit more contrast. So I come in with another. So here I'm not paying super close attention to like shadows and everything. I'm kind of thinking about it, but it's not like the forefront of my mind. So just throw down color. And then I do all the leaves the same way. So you have 3 different greens, and I'm just pushing the color up towards the tops of the leaves, going lightest to darkest, and then kind of backwards again. So yeah, and all the leaves I did the same shades. You could definitely do different colors for the rose leaves, because those are in the real world quite a dark green, whereas hydrangea leaves are kind of like a grass green. And then I have that same pale green I used before, and I'm coloring in the little, like, what I would consider eucalyptus leaves, and just doing a second, that mid-tone green for shading. And I didn't go in with the third one. I wanted to keep those lighter than the larger leaves. So I thought I was just about done here, but then, like I said, I did want to bring in some darker pink. So I used that on those little, like, I don't know what to call them, the little dot plant. And then I also add shading around the roses. So now I am thinking more deliberately about where the shadows are and trying to only add dark pink where those are. And I'm not really blending it out. I'm letting that be a pretty bold line and a bold contrast. So I just put that wherever I feel it's appropriate. And I definitely don't overdo it with this one, like I did with the box earlier. I just wanted to keep it simple. So I do that on both of the roses. Obviously, this one is like a different angle, so the shading is going to be a little bit different, kind of pushing the color upwards toward, from the base of the flower toward the center. Whereas the other one was like you would need shading in all different areas all the way around. So yeah, once I'm happy with the flowers, that's pretty much the main component of this card. So now I'm going to put together my card base. So I have a piece of heavyweight white cardstock, 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm scoring it at 4 1/4. And then I'm also going to score it after I fold it slightly. I'm going to put it back in my score buddy here, and I'm going to score it at 2 1/8. So that's halfway down the front of the card at this point. So I have 2 score lines, one at 2 1/8 and one at 4 1/4. And you'll see that that creates my easel. So when the recipient gets the card, I'm just going to enforce these folds here. They'll open it up, and then they'll be able to pop up the front, and it will stand on its own like this. So now I want to stamp a sentiment right onto my card front. So I'm putting my card base here into my MISTI, and I have a magnet to keep that down with the fold. It was just popping up. So I'm using a magnet to weigh that down, and I'm lining up my sentiment. Now, for this technique, first of all, I'm using the sentiment, "The world needs more people like you." I love all the sentiments in this stamp set. They're really sweet. And for this technique, you want to line the imagery and the stamp up on the lower half of the card front, which usually seems pretty strange because we're so used to like centering everything. But you want everything to be centered on the bottom half. So that's on the left bottom of my card front. And now I'm gluing the flowers onto my crate. So like I said before, the flowers basically cover the top half of this crate. When you die cut the crate, there is a line that is cut at the top, so you could actually stick things into it. However, I wanted the bouquet to look like it was kind of flowing over the sides. Now I'm taking some more liquid glue and putting that all over the back of the crate. I'm not going onto the flowers because this is going on the card front, and I didn't want to have too much glue that would then accidentally glue the flowers to the top half. So you want all of the adhesive to be below that score line, that midway fold that we already made. So the liquid glue luckily gives you a little bit of time to move it around. I wanted the bottom of the image to line right up with the bottom of my card, and you'll see here when I fold it, that helps me to kind of get a solid pressure all over it. And then it felt like the flowers were kind of coming off. So I just took my glue, and the Barley Arts has that very fine tip, so I could put a little bit of glue right along that top fold line and apply pressure that way. So I knew I wasn't getting glue where I didn't want it to be. So here is my card. It's not done yet because we need a secondary sentiment. So I'm going in with "You Make a Difference," and I'm going to take the coordinating die and cut that out 4 times. Now, I love when the dies line up with the lines of sentiments like this, where it's not just a rectangle, but it actually is shaped to the letters. That's one of my favorite things. So here I have the 4 die cuts. They're all just plain white, heavyweight cardstock, and I'm stacking 3 of them together. And I'm just using my liquid glue, and I'm using my fingertips to line them all up. And this will just create more dimension on this sentiment. So with my 4th die cut, I off camera went ahead and stamped the sentiment right onto that. You obviously have seen me do stamping before, so I didn't feel like I needed to show you that process again. But now I have a stack of 4 die cuts with the sentiment stamped on top. Now this sentiment is going to go on the inside of the card, and what it will do is it will act as kind of a stopper for our easel so that it stays upright. So I'm using my liquid glue, and I'm putting that basically right in the center of the inside of my card. I have little pencil marks that I erase later just so I knew exactly where I wanted it to be. And now you can see it in action. So once the glue dried, the recipient can set up their easel card, and the sentiment on the inside keeps it in place like this. So I love how this turned out. I think it's a really fun way to make your card interactive and make it easy to display in your home. So yeah, a very simple card and an easy technique to do. So thank you so much for watching today's video. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And consider subscribing to the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. There is always more creative inspiration here all of the time. So I hope I see you very soon. Bye!